What's going on, Titan Nation? I know you can't see me just yet. Just let you know we're going to be going live in just a few seconds and got something special coming up for you. So you better get ready for that. And we're going to have a whole lot of fun. So if you see the graphic, you see what some things we have going on. We have a very, very special guest that's going to be joining us for the show. So you better get ready. And we are going to have a load of fun, I'm telling you. So, if you're watching on Facebook, definitely make sure you share this show out. And of course, if you're watching on YouTube as well, make sure you share this out. Make sure we get some likes up, and we are going to have one heck of a good time. Let's get this show on the road.
It's about to go live. Tighten up, Nashville, rep the 615. First you tighten 2 steps, step to the right. Then you tighten 2 steps to the left. Blue jerseys everywhere. Game face, yeah, we got it all sticking out our chest. Beating on it like it's King Kong. Count that. It's about to get her up. Here come the train, y'all. To the seat, tighten up. Let's get tightened up. Tighten up. Let's get tightened up. Sticking out my chest. You know it like it's King Kong. Sticking out my chest. You know it like it's King Kong. Tighten 2 steps to the right. Then you tighten 2 steps to the left. Sticking out my chest. You know it like it's King Kong. Sticking out my chest. You know it like it's King Kong. Third down, come around, we about to shut down.
Good evening, Titan Nation. How's everybody doing on this wonderful Wednesday? Welcome into a brand new edition of Titans and Truth. I'm your man, Chris, aka Blue Enforcer, and we are going to have an absolutely amazing show for you this evening. I'm glad everybody is here with me. Make sure you share this show out. Make sure you share it out on Facebook. Join the TNT Enforcers page. Also on Instagram at Titan_N_Truth. And also on Twitter at TNT Blue Enforcer. Please do make sure y'all share that show out. Let's get those likes up. I see we have a few people tuning in, and as more of you come on in to join the show, make sure I hit that like button and show you support. And I appreciate it because we have a very special show in store for you today. I appreciate everybody coming in. I see AZ Mick, how's it going? Ryan Tannegold, how you doing? Mr. Titan is here and everything. I appreciate everybody here. Jameson is here as well. And let's go ahead and get this show on the road. And without any further ado, I want to bring in a very, very, very special guest to Titans and Truth. If you don't know her, I don't know where you've been, but you better get to know her very quickly. One of the sweetest people I have met so far. An amazing, amazing sports writer for the Associated Press and is a 3-time Tennessee Sports Writer of the Year and just became a class of 2020 Tennessee Sports Writer Association Hall of Famer. She will be inducted next summer, of course, due to COVID-19. But she will get in to the Hall of Fame. Ladies and gentlemen, without any further ado, the amazing Miss Teresa Walker is joining the show. Miss Teresa, thank you so much for joining the show, and thank you so much for doing this. I couldn't appreciate it anymore.
Well, I tell you, Chris, it's my pleasure. Although it feels a little bit like I'm doing Memphis week. I've been on a lot of different places in Memphis, but I'm glad to be talking Titans, because it's like, call me crazy, but outside of the state of Tennessee, nobody cares what the Grizzlies do, what the Predators do, or what the Titans do. And so I'm one of those people who want all three divisions to like each other, at least root for each other's teams.
I definitely agree with that. I mean, because all three teams are doing some very special things right now. I mean, you had the Titans make, this great playoff run and everything going on. The Grizzlies, of course, are finna get ready to tip back off. I believe they have a scrimmage on Friday as they get ready to resume their season. And, of course, the Nashville Predators, as we all know, are preparing to restart their year with a playoff series against the Arizona Coyotes. So I am definitely glad sports is slowly starting to return. We can get back normal. But, I mean, yes, got to have some love for all of the professional Tennessee teams, and Vols and Tigers too, definitely. So,
hey, I'm right there with you. It's like, nobody outside the state of Tennessee cares about these teams. And, I think that you can root for the Volunteers and the Tigers. And I tell you, I've been watching John Morant since he was at Murray State, watching that kid play for the Grizzlies. And now we get to, start turning our attention with, the Titans rookies are going to start reporting tomorrow. The veterans coming next week. And This is a team that, guys, they were a win away from playing in the Super Bowl. I was in Miami covering the Super Bowl. I was hoping to be able to cover the Titans in the Super Bowl, first time in 20 years. And they missed it by that much, but that's the challenge. But this is a team that I do think is built and poised to have a window that's wide open. Ryan Tannehill, Derrick Henry, both under contract for 4 years. Jeff Simmons, if you haven't seen pictures of what that young man has done to get his body reshaped for the pro level, you need to check out his social media. This is just a team that I think can do some fun things this year. Of course, they're being discounted by a lot of folks nationally, but don't worry about that.
Absolutely, and I could not agree more. And as you stated, training camps. If everybody doesn't know, training camps do start tomorrow. The rookies are going to begin coming in tomorrow, along with the quarterbacks and injured players. Also, and we're going to get into this topic that I just accidentally put up by mistake, but we'll get into that in just a moment. But the veterans will return next week, July the 28th. And so guys like you said, the newly signed Darrington Evans, who got his contract, our backup quarterback Cole McDonald will be there, Laurel Murchison. But quickly, two players that have not been signed yet are first and second round picks. Isaiah Wilson and Christian Fulton have yet to be signed at this point. So, as Mike Vrabel would do, my first question I pose to you, Miss Teresa, how are we looking with the how do you think we're looking with the rookies? Maybe do you think we have them all in on time?
I'll say this, Chris. They may not have Isaiah Wilson and Christian Fulton there tomorrow, but I don't expect much of an issue with these two young men. I mean, Wilson was taken at 29 overall. When you're taken at the end of the first round, it's rare that you have holdouts. Under the current CBA or the last CBA, it's just rare to have a first-round holdout, period. We just haven't had that many over the last decade. And the Titans have had a really great track record of getting their first-rounders in. When guys have missed any time, it's been a day or two. And that's the thing. Tomorrow is the rookies, quarterbacks, and injured players. So, would like to have them in there because, let's face it, unless you're a rookie who visited the team before the NFL shut everything down, you haven't been to the facility. You're going to need directions. Yeah. How do I get to St. Thomas Sports Park? Where do I park my car? Where do I get, which door do I come in to follow all the protocols that they've worked out under, to deal with COVID-19? So I don't see a problem. This is a team that had to get the Derrick Henry deal done first. And once they got that done last week, then we saw them do Darrington Evans today. They just kind of climbed the ladder. So I honestly was expecting at least one other draft pick to be signed today, but they still have time. The big guns are going to be coming in next week when you start getting those veterans coming back to camp. They're supposed to report on Tuesday. And then there's still that other little thing that's hanging out there, that veteran that people are wondering, will the Titans finally get a deal done with? So, but yeah, they're going to need to get those two rookies done, I think, before they get too serious on the other guy. Why? Simply because the rookies are supposed to come in first.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and we'll definitely talk about that particular other player that I think a lot of people are interested in just a bit. And speaking of the rookies, again, as you alluded to just a few moments ago, Darrington Evans did sign his rookie deal, I believe, today. So that makes 4 of the 6 draft picks have been signed, of course, along with Laurel Murchison, who I really like a whole lot. With Cole McDonald and Chris Jackson are already signed, sealed, and delivered. And we're waiting on, of course, Isaiah Wilson and Christian Fulton. I know I got Isaiah's name mispronounced there, so I apologize to that, everybody. But also, as we mentioned, Derrick Henry got the big deal. What were your thoughts on the big deal? I know I talked about it on last week's show, everyone, but Mr. Reese, I wanted to get your thoughts on the Derrick Henry deal, how it was structured out, how it all came together. Word is that Derrick Henry really wanted to get this deal done, didn't want to hold out. I mean, a consummate professional. What were your thoughts on that?
I was never worried that they were going to get a deal done by the deadline, for the simple reason that anytime Derrick Henry was asked about his contract last year, and he was in a contract year, he made it very clear, not a problem. Next question, he often said, I love football. I'm here to play football. And, things will take care of themselves. And guess what? He led the NFL in rushing. He carried them literally to the AFC Championship game with a performance that was the first in NFL history. 3 straight games with at least 180 yards in 3 straight games. It was just amazing. And then as soon as they were talking before the deadline where they had to use the franchise tag, they got Ryan Tannehill done. I know people were a little upset. Get Derrick Henry done first. You're talking about bigger numbers with the quarterback. I'm sorry, it is different. So you had to get that one done. So think of it in tiers. They had to get that one done so that they knew what they could do with Derrick Henry. They used the franchise tag to buy themselves time to negotiate. And then Derrick Henry, made it clear the whole COVID situation made him want the security of a long-term contract. And they got that deal done a couple of hours before the deadline. It was funny. There were some national reporters who were tweeting out, I think Sunday, Monday, that hearing that a deal may not be done before the deadline. Guess what, folks? Sometimes that's chatter thrown out to help maybe push one side or the other to either come back to the table or reconsider something, or just a reminder, guys, we're really coming up to the deadline now. We have to get serious. And they did, and they got the deal done. And Derrick Henry, who became a father, a young daughter this offseason, he said he wanted that deal done. And it's a win-win. He has his contract. And it didn't blow the bank. I mean, he has not shown, and he keeps working to develop his catching skills, but he's not a Christian McCaffrey. He's not an Alvin Kamara with that ball in his hands. What he is a very effective tank, El Tractorcito. Yes. Well, I tweeted, I think last Wednesday, just call him El Armored Car at this point, because he did, he got $25.5 million guaranteed. And it's win-win for the Titans, because if the next 2 years he starts showing signs that he's going down, they can get out of this deal after 2 years. But they have him for 4. If he does as I think he does, I think he can play out that 4-year deal pretty easily, because he sat for 2 years behind DeMarco Murray. And then he waited his turn at Alabama in college. This is a guy with very low tread on the tires. So, this is a guy that I think, and he's only missed 2 games in the NFL for injury. And one of those was mostly so they could get that hamstring truly behind him. Henry wasn't that happy to sit out that game. He wanted to go, but the Titans sent him out, made him rebound. And that's why we saw him go on that historic run, into the AFC Championship game. So I'm not too, it sends the great message. You do what we ask, you work hard like Derrick Henry did, you will get your contract. And that helps. It helps for a franchise, Chris, that just traded away Jarrell Casey in March for a seventh
Yes.
round pick. And there's a lot of people still, it's like, why'd you get rid of him? He's still, you know, and we all love Jarrell Casey. That said, you know, this clears the path for Jeff Simmons to kind of take the middle of that line. And it also clears up some much needed cap space to maybe do that other thing that we've been waiting on all off season for that other shoe to drop.
Yes, and going back to what you were talking about before with with Tannehill getting his deal first, and then Derrick Henry got his. Ladies and gentlemen, let me break it down. I broke this down before. You got to think about it like this, and this is no disrespect to Derrick Henry whatsoever. The fact of the matter is, think about it. Which position is easier to replace? Is a running back easier to replace or a quarterback easier to replace? We see it time and time again. Running back, you can find a running back in the 3rd, 4th, 5th round who could come in and electrify and be a star on your team. It is very, very, very difficult to find you a stable quarterback that can do it consistently for a long period of time. We have that in Tannehill. We thought we had that with Marcus Mariota. We see it is not easy to find a quarterback. It is a lot easier to find a running back. So when I saw that Tannehill got his deal done, I understood. It is, you better lock up a quarterback. You better lock up your quarterback first. The running back, it will come. And, if something happened where, unfortunately, if Derrick Henry did not sign and they let him go after this year, yes, it would have hurt. It would have hurt, but it's easily a replaceable position. Now, nobody can do what Derrick Henry does. I guarantee you that. Nobody can do some of the things that Derrick Henry can do, but you can find production in like the later rounds or somebody that just comes out of nowhere. So you got to keep that in mind, everyone. You got to keep that in mind when it comes to that. And as you said with Jarrell Casey, of course, when I heard the news about Jarrell, yes, I was salty too. But at first, we all have to understand this is a business. Jarrell was counting nearly $13 million against the salary cap for the next 3 years. You have to remember that. So you save $10 million this year, but you're saving $13 million next year and the year after that. And with this COVID situation the way that it is, you all have to remember the salary cap is going to suffer because the NFL is going to be losing revenue. They're not going to be having the money that they think they have unless fans are able to come into the stadium, and we don't know if that's going to be a factor yet. They're going to be praying that the TV contracts can help out a bit, but there's going to be a little bit of a drop in salary cap, or it may stay where it is. It's probably not going to go up much, but we got to be careful if things don't work out. It could be a $50 million drop possibly in the cap, and we're hoping that's not the case because that's going to strain a lot of teams. I don't think the Titans are going to be one of them, but there are some teams like the Eagles, like the Saints, that are going to be heavily strapped if something with that salary cap just continues to dip. So y'all got to be mindful of that. And speaking of rosters, we also have found out that rosters are downsized. Normally when camp starts, you have a roster of 90. But because of this situation, the rosters have now went down to 80. And there are no preseason games. At first, you had your regular 4. Then they shrunk it down to 2. Now there will be no preseason. So a question that I think a lot of fans want to know, and I asked this with Miss Teresa on this, is who does having no preseason or less roster spots, who does it hurt the most on that?
It hurts the undrafted free agent. Last year, Isaiah Mack out of Chattanooga is a guy that came as undrafted and was able to use those games and the preseason to get his way onto this roster. Drew Bennett is a guy who once upon a time was an undrafted free agent. So, they're still going to have practices. But again, even training camp's going to be different because they've allotted them, almost 3 weeks to acclimate and just make sure they're all in physical condition. Let's not forget, these guys have been working. If you follow any of the Titans on social media, you've seen them. They're running, they're lifting. I mean, shoot, the videos of Derrick Henry lifting. I mean, it looks like he's lifting a car with how much weight he's got on those racks. But when you get into football, that, as much as you can train doing it on the football field, it's different. And after the 2011 lockout, they had a lot of problems with torn hamstrings, soft tissue injuries. So, they're going to be spending more time doing that. And then they'll get into the football and the drills. So that's going to just take away. It's kind of a good thing that the roster's been cut to 80, because that way they've got fewer guys that they have to worry about getting reps with, and they can give more reps to those, numbers 50 through 80, guys that might be candidates for the practice squad. You're just not going to have that first, second, and fourth preseason game where the rookies get so much playing time, or even those first and second year guys get a lot of playing time. So you're going to have to show what you can do on the practice field, because you're not going to have that game light situation and the ability to do that. So your chances have just been reduced. I don't want to put a percentage on it, but your chances have been cut down because you're going to have fewer reps and you're going to have fewer opportunities to make that impression. They've got cameras all over the field. They're videoing everything and breaking everything down, so they can see what guys. But it's amazing how somebody can perform in a practice situation. Then you put them in a game under the lights, and some guys are truly just gamers, and that's when you see them at their best potential. And those guys are really going to be missing out this season.
Yeah, and I definitely see where you're coming from with that, because I mean, those last few roster spots are going to be more vital now than ever, and we know how it is in the preseason when those last few guys are fighting for those spots on the team. And I mean, you mentioned, Drew Bennett, Isaiah Mack, Khalif Raymond is another who just came out of nowhere and made a big impact from this. But you're absolutely right. Those undrafted free agents, it hurts them a lot, or those low-level free agents that maybe came onto the team that, you thought maybe were camp bodies or guys that, maybe could help, during the season. Now, you might go ahead and cut them loose as well. So, that does happen. And I believe, if I'm not, and correct me if I'm wrong, Ms. Teresa, I believe the practice squad amount goes up. Is that correct?
Yes, I think that it's going up to 12, maybe 16. I haven't seen the exact specific number. They've been doing so much negotiation over the last couple of weeks. I'm kind of waiting for them to get a little closer to camps and give me a regular number. But yes, there are going to be more jobs available for those 80 guys that are in camp. But the one advantage is that every NFL team is in the same situation. So hopefully you're going to be leaning on your scouts, that have seen these guys at practices when they were in college and in games on college, and you've got college game tape of people, so you can look at that. But the challenges and the choices are probably going to be tougher than ever this year, simply because they won't have those game situations and the fewer reps to look at guys.
Absolutely. And I mean, so that just tells any rookies out there, you better bring your hard hat. You better show something in practice. You got to impress more than ever, because if you don't do that, you might not find yourself with a roster spot going into the season. So I wanted to give a couple of shout outs. I see RG and Zach Carpenter. How everybody doing? Titan Upload is here. Everybody's showing appreciation on that as well. LGRW, how you doing? Titans Torch, how you doing? Lame Tube says as long as it doesn't hurt, as long as it's okay, won't hurt credibility with the coach. So no, her credibility cannot be touched at all. Her credibility stands alone anyway. So Coach Vrabel will be okay with this if he sees it. He'll be all right. I think he understands that this time I kind of turned the tables a little bit. So, maybe one day, she gets to ask him the first question. So got to have a little fun with that. And Joe, we just talked about that with extra guys on the practice squad with that. So Lame 2 says, I am in Tighten Up heaven. And we're all in heaven because we're glad to have Miss Teresa with us and everything. And Big Old Titan says, It says, tighten up, Mrs. Walker. Great job. So definitely appreciate it. I believe everybody knows you know your stuff when it comes to the Tennessee Titans, as Drumstar put it.
Thank you
so,
guys, and thank you all for watching. I appreciate it very much.
so yes, ma'am. And I again thank you for doing this and having us. But we have to go into what we always have to go into on this show, ladies and gentlemen, and that is Clowney Watch 2020. Clowney Watch 2020 is here. It is still going. We thought it was going to go away. The only problem is it's not. It is still here for good reason, actually, when it comes to this. So I know everybody is just anxious and anticipating a Clowney signing and everything. But as Miss Teresa alluded to earlier, we may have to hold up on that. Just go be patient, which I think that's going to happen. However, and I am going to read a tweet that was put out by a particular individual. I'm actually going to try to pull it up on my phone, by a particular individual that tried to put something out. Again, this is not something I fell for. This is something that I saw, but I wanted to get some thoughts on it before we went any further. But that was from, and I'm having some trouble bringing up that particular tweet by Mr. Ken Moore. Yeah, I got it up here now. So Mr. Ken Moore, who is a college football analyst in Houston, says, quote in a tweet, a trusted source tells me Jadeveon Clowney plans to sign with the Tennessee Titans once he can take and pass a physical. Clowney will likely need to go through COVID-19 2-test protocol before even being allowed to take a physical. But y'all know how I am when it comes to tweets or anyone coming out with anything when it comes to the Tennessee Titans. And Miss Teresa can attest to this. I always say it. If it's not coming from one of our local writers like Miss Teresa, like Paul Kaharski, if it's not coming from Teron Davenport of ESPN, if it's not coming from one of them, it better be coming from an Adam Schefter. It better be coming from an Ian Rappaport, maybe even a Chris Mortensen or a
Jay Glazer.
I forget his name. Jay Glazer. Thank you. If it's not coming from one of those sources, I take it with a grain of salt. I don't give it a lot of validity. I don't give it a lot of credibility. And I retweeted this out just for kicks and giggles to see. And I said this, and Miss Teresa knows this. I said, is this possibly legit? Could this be legit or not? Because I was skeptical. So, Miss Teresa, I give this to you. Is there any legitimacy to anything about Clowney going to the Titans at this moment from what you know?
Well, here's the thing. John Robinson, ever since free agency opened and Clowney became a free agent, he has kind of made it clear that whenever asked, yes, we're interested. We're interested. Problem was they couldn't bring anybody in with the NFL freeze. They couldn't bring somebody in for a physical. And he had hernia surgery after the Seahawks season ended in the playoffs. So you want two things. You want to make sure he's healthy. And you want to get him in here. I mean, you can agree to a contract, but you want to make sure he's healthy before you sign him to what is most certainly going to be a multi-million-dollar contract. When free agency started, the reports were he was wanting $21 million. No one's offered him that. So the money keeps going down. So the contract has to be situated. What the Titans have going for them, they are a team that was one win away from playing in the Super Bowl. They have a coach who was Clowney's defensive coordinator in 2017, the only year that Clowney has played all 16 games, his best year. So there's familiarity there. And, Anthony Midget, who's now the secondary coach for the Titans, he's now on the Titans roster, used to be in Houston with the Texans. There's a lot of familiarity here. Oh, Jonathan Joseph, the Titans signed him in April. He's friends with Clowney. So there are a lot of ties to help Clowney be comfortable here. But it still comes back to a couple things. They needed to make sure they had Derrick Henry under contract, see what cap space they had, and then, get to a point where you can bring guys in and get physicals. And that has just come this week. And before you can even take a physical, you've got to take and pass not one, but 2 COVID tests before you can even get him into your facility. So, could you send him to a different doctor here in town? Maybe, but you're probably going to want to get him into your facility and take a look at him up close to make sure what you're getting. So, yeah. If you remember when Patrick Mahomes got his deal, there was a young lady who was tweeting out that, there was a Chiefs guy came in and loaded up on Dom Perignon. Maybe I think they signed Mahomes. And then later she's like, hey, I had it right. Well, guess what? This gentleman in Houston, Clowney is working out in Texas, okay? So he might know somebody that knows something. And when this is, if Clowney signs with the Titans in the next week, then he might go back on social media and say, I knew it, I had it, I was right, y'all. And he will be. But here's the thing. What's the track record of the person tweeting that out? Have they broken news before? And as you mentioned, I'm going to trust the local beat writers who are covering the team or the national guys who are connected into agents before I and then first, another thing, check the social media handle, make sure there's a blue check there and that it's not a fake account. But, Chris, this just seems like this has been a relationship that they've been dancing around each other for months. And we're kind of getting close to midnight, but it just feels like we're getting close to a deal. If he was going to sign with somebody else, Seattle knew him. Seattle, they're familiar with his physical status at this point. But they're so tight under the cap, they're having a hard time making it work. The Titans have got cap space. You look at Spot Rack, the 4 teams ahead of them. Cleveland, you go in there? Not really. They just signed Myles Garrett to a huge deal. Cincinnati and Washington. Again, Miami, no. The team that has a chance to take him to the playoffs this season and get him close to that Super Bowl and maybe in it, Tennessee Titans.
Yes, I definitely agree with that. I agree with that 100%. And I mean, said it before and I'll say it again. If Clowney was going to go back to Seattle, he would have done it already. It would have already been taken care of. And I agree with you. Clowney to the Titans just makes too much sense. It's pretty lined up. It's pretty much there. I mean, like you said, it's like they've already been dating each other for quite some time. It's now time to kind of commit. It's time to be in a committed relationship. So that I agree. I think that's going to happen. We'll have to wait and see. And I'll give credit to Buck Rising from A to Z Sports. He mentioned this. Now, team doctors are going to be back in the facility as well, coming soon. So now physicals can happen. But like you stated first, they got to do the COVID testing first before you can even get to that point. But that is a big sign that now physicals can get done. So that could make it a lot easier to get him here and to get it done. But again, I'm not going to go crazy with it until it happens. So
that's smart, Chris, because I mean, doesn't it feel like the Titans have been driving their car around his house, for the longest time, waiting to get him in and just drive to the dance. And, the dance is getting ready to start here in a week. We'll see what happens. Be patient.
I agree. And I agree. So, ladies and gentlemen, get your dancing shoes ready because we're going to dance the night away. And hopefully when the clock strikes midnight, Clowney puts on that glass shoe and come on home and sign with us indeed. So I definitely like that. So everyone, now that we've gotten some good talk on some things going on with the Titans and around the league, it is time for your favorite part of the show and mine. It is Pick My Brain. Pick My Brain. But this time, we're not just going to be picking my brain tonight. We will also be picking Miss Teresa's brain as, she's joined the show. So if you got questions for her, y'all want to say, you know what, Truth, I don't want to talk to you. We want to talk to Miss Teresa. Feel free. I will sit back and I will just moderate through it all. Miss Teresa is the star of the show tonight. So we got a few questions already in and we're going to go right to it. So Miss Teresa, if you're ready, we'll take it away whenever you are.
Let's do it, Chris.
All right. Well, the first question I see, and I'm going to go up and get a few more. So we're going to probably take about maybe 5 to 7 questions, y'all. But the first question I have, and this is something I'm very interested in, comes from Joe Cardazio. He says, Miss Teresa, how did you get Coach Vrabel to have you be the one to ask the first question to start his press conference?
That's a great story, Joe. It's two parts. I didn't know myself, but last year we managed to get Tim McGraw and Coach Vrabel to sit down and talk about Nashville in the draft before the NFL draft. And as we were taking pictures, Mike Vrabel said to Tim, he goes, "You tell Tim that I give you the first question." And I said, hadn't gotten to that yet, but I said, the one question I get most often is why? And I said, I have my theories, longest on the beat. Longest tenure because Kaharski, he went and covered the whole AFC South for a while. So it's me. Secondly, one woman. I mean, I was coming up with and he goes, well, maybe I just like you. And then the second part of that, the reason I think he likes me is his first off season. I was a little tired. I covered the Olympics, hockey, women's hockey in Korea. I'd come and covered the Predators into the playoffs. They went to the second round that year, and I was just flat tired. So at the end of our big time where they put it on, they live stream it, Periscope it with all of us. Then we have a side session, at least, every few days with the print reporters. And we're over to the side, and I've got my tape recorder there. And he just turns to me at one point and he goes, "Do you have a question?" And I said, "No, I'm protecting." And I was tired and grouchy that day. And I said, and I don't have the ego that some of these other guys do that I have to ask a bunch of questions. And he said, "You're my new best friend." So I think it's this. When you don't ask a coach a ton of questions, I'll ask the questions I need to ask. I think that makes any coach happy. So I'll take it. And I will say there was a local radio station that put together some of the Teresa comments. And it's my ringtone on my work phone now. So, it's, hey, Teresa, Teresa, Teresa. So it's become a fun, personalized ringtone.
Yeah, and it's just, whenever all of us see a press conference, and that's usually the first thing he goes to is just every time there's a press conference, he may come and speak, and they say questions. That's the first thing he does. Says, "All right, Miss Teresa, kick us off." He'll do that every time.
Chris, it's such a habit that he does it on road games. And I've had colleagues message me or text me. It's like, he just asked for you. And he says, "You're not here." And then he'll turn and give the question to another woman in the audience to let her, fill in for me. And it throws my colleagues because it is kind of rare for a coach to look for one person and give them that one question to kick it off. Usually it's a free for all.
Absolutely. I definitely, but I appreciate the work and always, as insightful as you always are. That is something that is definitely amazing. Let's see. Ryan Tanagoat comes in with a question saying, who do you think, who are some other players that the Titans might target with the cap space not named Jadeveon Clowney?
I think that if they don't get Clowney, I think they're going to hold on to that cap space for the reasons you mentioned earlier. We don't know what the pandemic is going to do to the cap. The NFLPA, they want to spread it over the tenure of the current CBA, which is a decade. NFL owners reportedly want to do it this year and next. So they may not spend that space if they don't do a deal with Clowney. So if they don't do a deal with Clowney, then guess what? The other option, I think, is probably once teams start making cuts, maybe they add a veteran quarterback, to have that security. Because in this year of any years, if Ryan Tannehill were to say test positive for the virus on a Saturday, then he can't play. You've got to have somebody that you can trust to start a game. And I think the lessons of 2018, when they lost to the Colts in the final game of the regular season with a playoff berth on the line, I think that's still in the back of their heads. They want to see what they have in Logan Woodside and Cole McDonald. That said, cap space, it's going to be tough not to maybe get a veteran quarterback to protect yourself.
I definitely, now that I can agree with, because I want to say, my guy Jared Stillman on 102.5, he mentioned that he figured that was like one of the only right now blemishes of the great J-Rob is that he hasn't signed a backup quarterback. Who do we have? And I mean, I understand the Titans have a lot of confidence in Logan Woodside right now, but you got to have somebody that's a little bit more polished than what we have at the moment. And I would say, to everybody, hey, if we don't get Clowney, yes, it will be a disappointment, but there are other guys that could do the job as a pass rusher. Maybe that doesn't have the same name as him. I mean, you got a Marcus Golden, a Jabal Sheard. Everson Griffin is out there, even though he's more of a 4-3 guy. There are still Snacks Harrison. There are still some good defensive linemen and pass rushers out there that could be very solid players going forth in the future. But I agree, there is, that need for that backup quarterback that can solidify. Now, I saw this for kicks and giggles. Another guy that could be out there is Terrell Pryor. Even though he really hasn't played quarterback in the NFL as much, he could be a possible option. He did play quarterback, of course, at Ohio State, as a lot of us know, and, he can play two positions. So it's something that is a possibility. I'm not saying that will happen, but that is a possibility. It's something to look at with that. So.
Well, real quickly, they really do like Logan Woodside. This guy traveled with them. He charted during games last year. And just remember, a year ago, nobody outside of Washington State really knew Gardner Minshew. And he did okay enough for the Jaguars that they traded away Nick Foles. So, sometimes you've got to give guys that opportunity to blossom for two reasons: to see if they've got the talent to help you, and then two, save money where you can.
Yes, I definitely agree with that a whole lot. So, I mean, especially with what the salary cap might look next year, yeah, saving that money could be a very good idea indeed. Let's see, we got another question here on Facebook. Says, who you think will have better production in 2021? Could it be Clowney in Tennessee or Jarrell Casey with the Denver Broncos now?
That's a close one, because I do think Jarrell Casey is going to be very, very motivated to show that the Titans were wrong to trade him away for a ham sandwich, essentially, a 7th-round pick. But, man, if Clowney comes in here and he's healthy, and this is a defense, let's not forget, that he's familiar with the pieces around him, I might lean toward Clowney just because I'm expecting big things from Jeffrey Simmons. And I think Harold Landry, they're going to give him fewer snaps. I think that'll make him fresher later in the season. And Vic Beasley, let's not forget about this young man. This is a guy on a 1-year deal. He is motivated as well. So when you've got that many threats, and don't forget Daquan Jones either. When you've got that much threat on the line, it's going to make them all better. So it might end up, just because of the capabilities, if Clowney is here in Tennessee, Casey might end up having the better season just because that little, chip on his shoulder. And he might be wanting to show out, particularly on September 14th.
Yeah, I could definitely see that. I mean, I even mentioned that during my draft show that Denver is, and ladies and gentlemen, Denver is a nice looking young team right now. They're really going forward with Drew Lock. They got Cortland Sutton. They have Jerry Jeudy out there. KJ Hamler's out there. You got Jarrell Casey on that defense with Bradley Chubb, and I forget there's a certain guy that wears glasses. We're number 58, almost like a cowboy. I forget, what is his name? Oh, Von Miller. You can't forget about him.
Chris, I love Von Miller because Super Bowl 50 in San Francisco, media night, I went up and asked him, because I knew that he told a colleague of mine that he had like a couple hundred pair of glasses, right? Well, I'm nearsighted. So I went up to him and I said, what's your eyesight like? Are you farsighted, or are you as blind as a bat? And he said, I'm blind as a bat. His eye prescription is actually worse than mine. So God bless him.
I definitely can understand that. You know what? Let me take that back. I can't understand that. So I sympathize with anybody that has to wear glasses. My wife has to do it. My mother-in-law has to do it from time to time. So hey, sight is important, but hey, I like everybody. I like some people with glasses because it helps with a beautiful look. So it continues to beautiful look. It makes everybody shine even brighter. So I definitely like that with that. But I got another Facebook question. Miss Teresa, who was your favorite player to interview?
Well, current team, I'm going to go with Kevin Byard because he is one of the most patient guys. You can go talk to him, and other waiver reporters will come and talk to him, and he'll just keep talking. That hasn't changed from his days at Middle Tennessee State. All time with the Titans, I'm probably going to go to Eddie George because he's and that group of Titans, Steve McNair guys. In this day and age, quarterbacks will talk maybe once a week and then after the games. Steve McNair talked every day. You could get him every day. You might have to wait for him to come out of the treatment room, and sometimes those waits were a long time. But you could get him and talk before he went on to his next meeting. But Eddie and Frank Wycheck is another of those go-to guys. That said, Eddie George is probably at the best because he would give you a good answer, a thoughtful answer, and also that quality that when you went up to him, he would talk. Which sadly, sometimes some guys lack that quality. And when we're going up to them, we're only going up to them to get information for our stories for the fans. So I really always appreciate the players who will take the time to talk.
Absolutely. I definitely like that too. Cause it shows that, it shows their personality. And, there are other players that, they just don't want to talk to the media. They don't even want to waste their time. Now, I'll joke on Derrick Henry a little bit. I can always tell when Derrick Henry is talking to the media, you can kind of tell it's like he's very uncomfortable at times with the media. I think he's gotten better with that. But you could tell when he first got drafted to the Titans, he was just not comfortable talking to the media at all. Like he looked like maybe a deer with headlights, just like, oh my God, what do I do? But, he's gotten much, much better with that.
Chris, I kind of blame the fact that he played at Alabama. And I think that playing for Nick Saban, that whole atmosphere just kind of beats the originality out of you. And then I think it's also part maybe his personality that he'd rather go work than talk about it. So, mentioning Steve McNair, he's a guy who didn't really like talking to us either. You could tell he was uncomfortable, but to give him credit, he worked at it and made sure he got better. And he got he improved so much over his career talking to the media, became more comfortable, started sharing more about his background growing up in Mississippi. And, and sometimes players grow. I'm hoping that Derek will spend maybe a little bit of time on some media training to help him joust with us better. Because, I think there's an awful lot of personality there that maybe he keeps, hidden away.
Yeah, absolutely. And I will say one guy that's on the team, and I think he's still a free agent right now, that I think definitely is going to have a future career in media. Got to give it up for the lumberjack. One Mr. Wesley Woodyard. I know he did. I think he did the. I think it was like the media training or something like that for for his life after football. I think Wesley Woodyard is definitely going to have a future in the media world. Definitely coming off of his playing career. I think we have time for one more question, and we're going to go a little off the grid a little bit. Jameson comes and says, what do you feel about the possibility of college football kicking off in the fall? And I know there's been some reports that they may push it back to the spring. We've already seen that a lot of out-of-conference games have been changed or canceled. But Ms. Teresa, what are your thoughts on that, if any?
I'm cynical, just because we're talking about student athletes, and Clemson today announced that they're going to be starting classes online down there, and they're a team that's constantly in the mix for the national championship. They got Trevor Lawrence. The SEC is trying to push off a decision. And a few days ago, it was like Greg Sankey. It's like, wear your masks, wear your masks. We've been asking you, wear your masks.
Yep.
We're putting this. The reason they're making the decision late July, which is now in the next few days, next week, that we're looking at the point where players are on campus training and acclimating, but we're looking at what would normally be the start of training camp next weekend. At the same time, the Titans are coming in around August 1st, 2nd, 3rd. So we've got to get a decision soon. But when you're not wanting your students on campus because of the virus, and the numbers that we're seeing, the peak and these hot spots, it's just tough to be able to say, okay, we're going to keep our students off campus, but you student athletes who are earning us millions of dollars, you go right ahead. I'm much more cynical that we'll have a college football season. Now, I do think some of the Power Fives are going to try to salvage, Big Ten. It has gone to conference only. They made it clear. SEC seems to be looking at every contingency. Pac-12 is doing conference only, I think. So there's going to be attempts to salvage this season. But if they push it to spring, there's no guarantees that we have vaccines or treatments or the numbers are back down again. And you're going to risk losing stars like Trey Smith from Tennessee, Brady White from Memphis. Guys, guess what?
Yeah.
They may not want to play because if the NFL has its season, then they're going to be wanting to prep for the NFL draft next April. And they have no incentive to go play college ball and potentially risk an injury, not at that point.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I mean, and like you said, you hit home with Trey Smith in Tennessee, right here in Memphis with Brady White, Kenneth Gainwell, a young running back. He could go out as well. And, that was an incredible year that they had last year. I was actually in Dallas for the Cotton Bowl, which I thought was beautiful. And I mean, AT&T Stadium, as much as I don't like the Cowboys as much, more the fans of anything, but that is a beautiful facility. And I was in awe there. But I mean, my last question I wanted to ask, and I know we talked about this a little bit off air before we went on, and I kind of wanted to know, basically, Miss Teresa, with getting with the Associated Press, how did you get your start and figure sports writing? Like this is where I want to be.
Well, I'm lucky enough that I grew up watching sports with my mom. So I watched Bob Greasy when he was wearing glasses with the Dolphins, and they had the dolphin in the pool. Ken Stabler driving the Raiders down the field in 76. Earl Campbell in 78, 79. So I grew up watching that. Went to journalism school, University of Tennessee, and worked for a couple of years. But in the 80s, the internet didn't exist. The only woman I had seen really doing any sports was Phyllis George on the CBS NFL Today show, followed by Jane Kennedy. And so those were the only women that I'd seen doing sports. And so I didn't know that this was a possibility. I was just always the tomboy who loved sports. And then when AP called me, I was working in a newspaper in Maryville, Tennessee, just south of Knoxville. And I was covering the police and the courts and school boards. I did one high school football game. I did one feature story on Hoosier racing tires. But that's all the sports I did. Then I came to the Associated Press in December of '89. And for 2.5 years, I wrote high school, college football and basketball game stories, taking them over the phone and sending them out to the country, and got a chance. My first NFL game was actually covered in Memphis at the Liberty Bowl. It was the then Los Angeles Rams with Jim Everett and the then Houston Oilers with Warren Moon. So, and I've been our sports writer since June of 1992. And I'm really lucky I got the chance and I'm really lucky that I had an NFL team move here, an NBA team move to Memphis, and the NHL give a team to Nashville. So I didn't really need the MLS, but guess what? And I'll say this: I think I have baseball in another 5 years. The group that's in Nashville is trying to bring the worst and expansion team to Nashville. So my plate's loaded up. But the Titans are at the top of that pile always. NFL rules.
Absolutely, and I mean that is something that that inspires me as well to keep trying to do what I do to get to that distinguished level that you are, and now of course with that being a 3-time sports writer of the year, and of course now a Hall of Famer in Tennessee sports in the Tennessee Sports Writers Association. So again, a major congratulations to you on that achievement. That is absolutely incredible. You always do some amazing work, some great questions, and some great footage that you do put out. So that is something that I absolutely enjoy. I give you bravo to that.
Well, thank you. I'm lucky. I love what I'm doing. And, that old saying that if you love what you do, it doesn't feel like work. There's times when the days are 12, 14-hour days that it feels a little bit like work. But, this is the toy department of news. And let's face it, we love talking sports. And that's why I love talking Titans anytime I can. And because we're having fun, right?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, this is why, this is why I do this. So, I mean, I work a regular, I work a regular job in the day, and, on a night like tonight, I like talking Titans at night. So, I mean, I have nothing but the most fun doing that. And sometimes if I have a bad Wednesday or something like that and I come and do this, it just makes me forget the bad day that I had. So, I just, it's just, like I said, it's been an honor and a privilege on that. And I really thank you for everything. Before we do get to the end of the show, we do have one last segment, and we do have this new series that we've been doing, the HI-LO, that we've been doing, everybody. Of course, we've went through rounds 1, 2, 3, and 4. And if you haven't seen that, go back and take a look at the previous episodes. They're there for you. But tonight we're going to go into round 5 of Titans picks in the last 20 years. And if many of you know John Robinson, round 5, when he took over, he's hit some in round 5. He's hit quite a few in round 5. And we're going to definitely speak a little bit about it. Who has been the high, the boom pick, or who's been the low bust pick on that. So here we go on that. The since 2000, so this is in the last 20 years, in 2000 we had Frank Chamberlain, linebacker from Boston College. In 2000 as well, we had Eric Morris, defensive back from Michigan State. We had in 2001 Eddie Berlin, wide receiver from Northern Iowa. We had in 2002, Jake Shafino, wide receiver from Akron. In 2003, a name that I think a lot of Titan fans are familiar with, Donnie Nicky, safety from Ohio State. In 2004, we had a couple of draft picks, Robert Reynolds, linebacker from Ohio State, and Jacob Bell, a guard from Miami of Ohio. As y'all remember, he did start quite a bit for the Tennessee Titans. In 2005, you had Daniel Loper, a tackle from Texas Tech, and Damian Nash, a running back from Missouri. In 2006, somebody that I believe Miss Teresa will be familiar with, Jesse Mahalona, defensive tackle from Vol Nation, the University of Tennessee. In 2006, Turner Nade, linebacker from Miami of Ohio. In 2007, Antonio Johnson, defensive tackle from Mississippi State. In 2009, Javon Ringer, running back from Michigan State. And Robert Johnson in 2010, a safety out of Utah. Ms. Teresa, before we go into the other half, did any of those names stick out to you as players that, you didn't expect a lot from, that maybe did a little thing with the time that they were with the Tennessee Titans?
2 of them, Donnie Nicky, who ended up playing 8 years in the NFL. People probably remember him for his game against the Colts. There were a couple of turnovers in that game, but he lasted 8 years. He was a key special teams player over that stretch. Jacob Bell, anytime you can get a starter in the 5th round. Now, he only lasted 4 years with the Titans, but then he went to the Rams and had another 4 years there. He started 100 games in the NFL. To get that in the 5th round, that's impressive.
I would definitely agree with that too, as well. And those were a couple of names I remember. I also remember, of course, Eddie Berlin on special teams. Also, doing a few things on special teams. And I thought you were probably going to say a little bit about Jesse Mahalona with him going to Tennessee. So I thought maybe you had a little something on him as well.
Had hoped that he would have a great career. Anytime they take somebody from an in-state school, definitely hope that they'll come through and have a great career and stick with the Titans. But, Jesse was a great guy. It just didn't last here. So right. I'm still, there was, Joey Kent back in the day and Justin Hunter. And maybe they just shouldn't take Tennessee Vols for a while. I'm just saying.
I see exactly what you're talking about. Now, I want to say now, Travis Henry, I want to say, didn't he go to Tennessee as well? Travis Henry, the running back.
Oh, yes, he did. So, but here's the difference. He came to the Titans from somewhere else. So
Yeah.
maybe, and he was a running back. You mentioned running back earlier about how you can replace him. Well, after Eddie George left, Travis Henry was one of those running backs who came in and had 1,000 yards behind that offensive line, thanks to Mike Munchak coaching the line. So, he was a good, he was a very good guy. He was always a talker. So. But you have to be careful, and you got to choose carefully when you're picking from Tennessee players. I'm just saying.
Absolutely. I can definitely understand that as well. But going into the other half of the 2000s with draft picks as well, we start, and there are some more familiar names that I think we are all familiar with. In 2011, you had Mr. Carl Kalug, defensive tackle from Iowa. In 2012, you had Taylor Thompson, a converted defensive lineman to tight end from SMU. In 2013, LeVar Edwards from LSU. In 2014, a guy that hit with the Titans, Avery Williamson, linebacker from Kentucky. In 2015, you had David Cobb, running back from Minnesota. In 2016, you had the Mouse, LaShawn Sims, cornerback from Southern Utah. We have a funny story about that with Jadeveon Clowney as well. In 2016 as well, you had Tajay Sharp, wide receiver from UMass, who now plays for the Vikings. Here are some of the hits that John Robinson had in 2017. Jayon Brown, linebacker from UCLA. Dane Cruikshank in 2018, safety from Arizona. And in 2019, a guy that I think a lot of people are looking forward to trying to see something from, DeAndre Walker, linebacker from Georgia. And in this past draft, we got Laurel Burchison, defensive tackle from North Carolina State. Now, in that group, I know there's definitely at least two names that easily stick out to us, and I'm not even going to go with that. One of them wore 54, the other wore 55 on that. But Teresa, I'll defer to you. Who stands out in that one?
Well, there's 6 guys out of there that that have made huge contributions in starters. I mean, Carl Klug, huge defender, lots of sacks. But when you can get starters again in that round, Avery Williamson, he got his second deal from the Jets. But he's a guy who was a big starter for them. They just you get to a point where you can't keep everybody. Avery is in that category. And then they draft Jayon Brown, who helps replace Avery Williamson. And he's a guy that they're going to have to make a decision about next offseason. LaShawn Sims, he's a guy, you take him, and he had a huge interception in a game at Kansas City. A cold day in Kansas City in the end zone. So Tajay Sharp was first pick in the 5th round that year, and he started many games, and he's gotten his second contract. I still don't think that he's going to be – I don't know if he's going to be the level that the Vikings are counting on him, but he signed a second contract. Now, and as you mentioned, we're waiting to see what DeAndre Walker, can do. He's going to be healthy, and, he's going to be – if they don't do Clowney, guys – the Titans do have Walker is a part of that young group that they've stockpiled some young guys to compete and to help them with depth at that place. Walker is one of those guys. And Murchison, I can't wait to see this guy because, he's been able to play up and down the line. That's the versatility that Mike Vrabel loves.
Absolutely. And I just think, maybe we have a Jarrell Casey replacement with him right there. And of course, I can't wait to see if he gets a sack, that first sack dance with the guitar. I can't wait to see that when he makes a big play on that. And I agree with you. Of course, we talk about Avery Williamson and Jayon Brown, but I definitely enjoy watching Carl Klug play because Carl Klug, he was a guy he also reminded me of with Kyle Vanden Bosch. His motor never stopped. The guy has tremendous heart. And I mean, the guy could just play some football. I even remember him being in on in goal line situations. They would bring him in the jumbo situation to play fullback at times too. So, I mean, I definitely remember Carl Klug made a lot of big plays for the Tennessee Titans, a lot of big plays. And, he was a guy I was very sad to see him go when, I believe he retired now, if I'm not mistaken. But I mean, a terrific player. And LaShawn Sims, of course, we talked about it. Even though Clowney may be joining us very soon, Clowney kind of got he had that egg on his face. He picked on LaShawn Sims. We all remember the game that he picked on LaShawn Sims, talking about coach gonna go after you, and we coming at you, because he had DeAndre Hopkins on him. He goes and makes the interception. Clowney just had that look on his face like, oh God, what did I just say? So he had that blank stare.
Yeah, Clowney has gotten into trouble in games in Nissan Stadium, but that's the thing. It'll be a lot better if he's actually playing on the other side of the field, if they can make that all happen.
I definitely agree with that. And I see some people already commenting, and that's what I would say as far as all of those picks. Who are your highs? Who are your lows? We've went over some. A couple of you are chiming in. I see Al Pierce saying highs being Jacob Bell and Donnie Nicky. Shafino sure was fast, but I wouldn't put him on this list. I agree with that. He also mentioned high of Klug, Williamson, and Brown. I definitely agree. Those are definitely some highs. Jacob Bell did start on an offensive line, I believe with Mawai as well. And if I'm not mistaken, Miss Teresa, you could correct me on this. Wasn't he on the offensive line around the year that CJ2K went for 2,000?
I don't think so, because he was with the Titans for 4 years. So 4, 5, 6, 7. I think that he then left. In fact, I've got it right here. Give me a second. Nope. In 2009, he was with St. Louis.
Okay. Then I stand corrected. I appreciate that. So everybody, hey, Miss Teresa just did it. If I'm incorrect, call me out on it. She just helped me. So I perfectly understand with that. And and I'm with Jameson on this one. A low for me has to be David Cobb and Javon Ringer as well, because I thought both of those guys maybe could come in and do some good for the Titans in the running game, but it just did not pan out for them. I know a lot of times they didn't really get a chance to get on the field much, but you got to take advantage of your opportunities when you have them, and those were a couple of disappointing picks in my opinion.
Damian Nash is in that category for me, because with Javon Ringer, my worry about him was that he had too many carries in college. And, that's why I like, Derrick Henry, because he didn't have a ton of carries in college. He wasn't that workhorse that some running backs are. Jonathan Taylor going to the Colts, he's a guy I worry about for that very same reason. He's already had a lot of carries. And while Jeff Fisher used to say back in the day when they'd ask, about Eddie George, it's like, well, he's had 300 whatever carries this year. Aren't you, 400 carries? Are you worried about the number of carries? Fisher would always say, well, that ball isn't that light or in that heavy. The guys hitting you as a running back, they're heavy. Mm-hmm. And those hits are the ones that take a toll and eventually slow somebody down. So, poor Javon Ringer, great young man, but he'd had a lot of football by that point.
Yeah. And I'm glad you mentioned that with Jonathan Taylor, and that is definitely a valid point on that, is that he carried like you said, he carried the rock a lot in college at Wisconsin. I mean, they depended on him a lot, and I didn't really see him do a lot coming out of the backfield as far as catching the ball. And you also got to remember, he has fumbleitis issues. He does tend to put the ball on the ground. So that's something that might be a concern to the Colts, but that could be a benefit to us as well. So we knock that ball out, maybe cause a couple of turnovers. That could definitely help us with that. So that would be the high-low, everybody, with round 5. So next week we'll be coming. We're almost to the end of it. We're going to be hitting round 6. And there looks like there might have been a couple of gems in that round as well. But we're about to get ready to wrap up this show with what I like to call the Blue Bombshell. And basically with that, it is a birthday edition. I have a little bit of a quick story. Is my late auntie, the lovely Miss Regina Siggers, that today would have been her birthday. she recently passed away a few years ago. I was very sad about that with my auntie passing away. Definitely a classy lady, always treated me like a son. Her daughter, my cousin, Crystal, is like a sister to me. So happy heavenly birthday to my Aunt Regina. Looking down on me. I hope she's proud of me and everything with that. And also, happy birthday to Boss Hog, to Big Daddy Taylor Lewan. Today is his birthday. I hope they got to do something for him. They got to, get him up with a big cake and something like that. And, Taylor Lewan definitely busting with the boys, for the boys indeed, as we run it back. And so happy birthday to Taylor Lewan, indeed. We know we got live sports coming back and everything. And Miss Teresa, I wanted to say, was there something that's happened maybe this week or in the last week or two that you found very interesting, that's just off the wall, that you've seen in sports as sports is starting to come back?
Oh, that's a good question, Chris. I just think that it's just so fun and weird to, from this side of it, to be dealing with the NHL and the NBA, and, they're practicing. And I went to Predator practices last week, watched some hockey down on the ice. But guess what? We're doing all our interviews by Zoom. So
Yep.
I went home to do the interviews, and, that's what we've been doing with Grizzlies. They do practices. We get them on the Zoom calls. That's what we're probably going to be. That's how we're going to be getting Titan players during camp and pretty much this entire season by Zoom. So, it's strange that technology, usually it drives us crazy sometimes, but right now in this pandemic, it's been a wonderful saving grace. And, it's going to be weird and unusual, and all of us are going to have to adapt in covering sports here for the next few months, because it's going to be different.
I definitely, you're absolutely right. And I would say this, whoever was the owner of Zoom, who founded that, their stock has skyrocketed from this coronavirus. Indeed, a lot of, anybody that's doing video chats or anything like that, they're making major money off of this. So, I mean, that is something right there with, like you said, the NBA coming back. Of course, I recently saw interviews with Ja Moran and with Coach Jenkins wearing their mask as they do interviews and things like that. So, I mean, you got to take precautions when it comes to that. And one more story, Grizzlies-wise, that happened, kind of an unfortunate story, was Justice Winslow goes down with an injury, I believe, last night. He was fighting back from an injury before the Grizzlies traded for him, was still hurting and healing. They were hoping to have him ready to go for this last push of the season, but unfortunately now he's been ruled out for the year. So just a tough break for Justice, as he was so looking forward to, donning the Grizzly uniform for the first time and playing with his teammates. But unfortunately, we're going to have to wait until the 2021 season to see that happen. It's just such an unfortunate story.
He talked to us on Sunday. He was so happy and so excited, and he was wolfing it up, and you could tell he was happy. And then they had a scrimmage on Monday. It was a back issue that kept him from being on the court with the Grizzlies back in February and March. He was about to play in Portland, and then the NBA stopped play. Now he gets hurt, contact on Monday, hip injury, and now they tell us that he's out for the rest of this season. So the one good thing is the next season, if all goes well, won't be starting until November, and they only said that he'll miss the rest of this season. So that is a good indication that he should be back when they're ready to start up for the next year.
Yeah, absolutely, indeed. And I just, I'm looking forward to that. I'm definitely sad about that, because I'll tell everybody a quick story right quick. My my wife, my lovely wife Ashley, had gotten me a gift with I think it was like a 6-pack of tickets for games, and I think I had an extra game with the MLK game against the Pelicans, and I believe I had three or four games left when the pandemic shut everything down. So I think the tickets got rolled over for next season. So hopefully I'll be able to get to see 6 or 7 games next year and cover the Grizzlies that way. So of course, with the new concept that I have coming up, and Ms. Teresa, with you having experience with all Tennessee sports, I'm definitely going to have you on for that one as we talk about that. But everybody, Ms. Teresa, how can anybody find your great and illustrious work?
2 ways. You can like my page on Facebook, Teresa M. Walker, and like it. I kind of screwed up back in the day, so there's one that I don't really use, but the one that I post my work on is, if you like that page, Teresa M. Walker, you'll see all the stuff that I do all across the state of Tennessee. And on Twitter, also at Teresa M. Walker.
There it is, and you have it right there, Ms. Teresa M. Walker, indeed. And I have made sure to put in on that as well, because she writes some incredible work for the Associated Press. And I'll say it once and I'll say it again, Ms. Teresa, it has been an absolute honor. I think a lot of people have said this is probably you're right now the best guest of this show. A lot of people have said that, and I think everybody has absolutely enjoyed it. I too have enjoyed this. I've had tons of fun with you tonight, and we are definitely going to have to do this again.
My pleasure, Chris. And yeah, just let me know. And things are starting to get busy again, but I will be happy to make time for you.
Well, I definitely appreciate that indeed. Everybody, we're going to close that out. That is a wrap. Thank everybody for tuning in to Titans and Truth. Yeah, as you see on the ticker, make sure y'all go follow, make sure y'all go like and subscribe. We got a lot of content coming up, and make sure y'all go check out Miss Teresa's wonderful work indeed. And until next week, everybody, thank y'all for tuning in. Good night, and as always, tighten up.